Welcome in everyone to MBA Unplugged. It has been a minute, but we are back starting off this second semester strong. Today we have a great guest, and we are privileged to have this guest on. But again, I hope all is well. Weather is warm. It's good to be outside, and it feels good. It puts a smile on your face with the warm weather. So outside of that, I'll let Liam introduce our guest, and then we can start it.
Absolutely. My name is Liam Wong, and today I'd like to introduce Henry Hicks III. He is a visionary leader with a remarkable track record of driving impact across multiple industries. Currently serving on multiple boards, including Roosevelt Institute, and previously served as president and CEO of the National Black MBA Association. In addition, he formerly served as president and CEO of the National Museum of African American Music, where he spearheaded the $60 million startup, transforming it into a cultural landmark. With an unparalleled commitment to excellence and community empowerment, Mr. Hicks continues to shape the future through strategic leadership and a deep passion for creating lasting change. How are you doing, Mr. Hicks?
I'm great. Glad to be here with you guys today. Glad to be on campus.
Yes, yes. And Mr. Hicks is a Morehouse grad to this point. We won't put a date on it, we won't age him, but for those who
Class of 89.
Class 89. Class 89. So, Mr. Hicks, again, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Yes.
So, we know who you are. We've done some research on you. But for the audience, who is Henry Hicks?
You know, it's a great question. I'm a kid from D.C., came down to Morehouse, got involved. I don't know if the D.C. Metro Club is still around, but got involved in that. Did a lot of pajama parties and helped Freaknik blow up back in the day. And so got in a little bit of trouble there. And then just kind of, went on to be a business guy. I've got two sons that are about your age, maybe a couple years older, and a wife who I met over at Spelman back in 1986.
AUC Levy's this?
On So met her on King Day, 1986, the first King Day, and so we've been going strong for more than 30 years. So, just a guy from DC trying to live.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, as we said, from DC, I know the DMV is very, very deep and prominent at Morehouse. There's so many people enriched from the DMV. But I want to talk about your career. So, you've had a lot of entrepreneur experience. You've had a lot of experience within leadership. I want to really start. If you could kind of walk us through your professional journey and how it's got you to where you are today.
Yeah. So, when I was a student here at Morehouse, I really kind of selected my major. I majored in marketing, but I got there really by eliminating the things that I didn't want to do. So there were all kinds of accounting, finance, medicine, history, all kinds of things I didn't want to do. It kind of boiled down to marketing. And at the time, the term entrepreneurship really wasn't a thing. It was something that people did, but you didn't call it that. I mean, I'm not even sure what you called it, but you called it hustling or, just starting a small business or whatever it was. But it wasn't really a career path the way we think about it today. But essentially, that's what I wanted to be, but I didn't know how to say that. And at the time, so my classmates were running around, blue suits, rep ties, wingtip shoes, the whole thing, pursuing these jobs. And so I jumped in and got a sales job right out of school, so which was a great way to get started. A salary of $30,000 a year was a pretty respectable number at the time, and so I worked for a company called Monsanto back at the time. At that time, it was really cool to work for Monsanto. It may still be in some divisions now, but company's gone through a lot of change over the last 30 years. But worked for a company called Monsanto, did that for a couple of years, and then went to business school. Got a degree there from the University of North Carolina, where I was a consortium fellow, and then and focused there more in accounting and finance. And as I was telling Liam earlier, it wasn't because I wanted to be in banking or I wanted to go into consulting or anything. It was because it was a weakness. Yeah. It was a weakness that I knew of, and my professors could see it. They could see the kind of salesmanship, they could see the talking, they could see the big ideas, but what they were kind of saying was, hey, you got to learn to read these financial statements. You got to sort of understand how the numbers fit into the marketing and the strategy. And so I leaned into that a bit. Out of grad school, I went to work for an accounting firm of all places, doing mergers and acquisitions work for them. So did that for a couple of years, then went to work for Bank of America for 5 or 6 years, doing investment banking work and a little bit of private equity for them. Then I did go into management consulting for a couple of years, mostly doing interim management work for early stage tech startups. So kind of helping them raise their round B or C round of capital, but having to prove to their investors that there was mostly a sales pipeline behind their product that would kind of make it worth investing in. And then came back and went to work for a private equity firm, came back to Atlanta, actually moved back to Atlanta after that experience. Worked for a private equity firm and was kind of vice president of sales for their portfolio companies. So lived here in Atlanta, but didn't work here. And so ran sales for companies in Alabama, Cleveland, Ohio, and Chicago out of Atlanta. So did that for 6 or 7 years and then wanted to buy a business on my own. So I took about 10 or 11 months and got focused on that and bought a bus company in Nashville, Tennessee, where you're from. So the Gray Line Bus Company in Nashville, I bought that company with a partner back in now, I guess it was 2009. And then exited that business and was at the time chair of the board of a project to build a museum in Nashville. And so moved over into the CEO role there to raise the capital, so raise the $60 million to build that, get that project done. Thought it would take a couple of years, it wound up taking about 10. And so really did that work, kind of leaned into it, got that project up and done. So the National Museum of African American Music, got that opened in 2021 when the pandemic was still underway. So that was a pretty interesting project to lean into. And then left there in 23 and came to Atlanta and joined National Black MBA as their CEO for about 18 months and recently left there and I'm now kind of thinking about what it is I'm going to do next. So maybe we'll pivot back to entrepreneurship or we're not sure just yet. So kind of giving myself a break to kind of think about it.
Absolutely, that's an incredible journey. You talked about during grad school that you chose a major that you were not familiar with. It was your weakness.
Yeah.
How important was that mindset for you going to different ventures of life? Because most people, when they go pursue another degree or they're pursuing their first degree, they're doing something they're already talented at. So how important was it for you to dive deeper into your weaknesses and build upon that?
Yeah. So it wasn't important to me until that time, until that moment in my career. And it really had to do with a professor happening to say the right thing to me at the right time. He didn't just say you should major in finance or accounting. What he said was, I can tell where you're trying to go and I can see your weakness. And if you don't get better at this, it's going to make it harder for you to go forward. And so what I really was doing was investing in myself in that way and sort of saying, I want to get to where I say I want to go, then I'm going to have to do something a little bit different. And so we just kind of leaned in. It wasn't easy, but I figured, the time to have those kinds of difficulties is in school when there's a professor somewhere nearby that can help you out. And so just kind of dove into it and focused really for the purpose of getting to where I was trying to go.
And so one thing, I don't want it to go over people's head. When you said you bought the Gray Line Company in Nashville, you took 10 to 11 months for that planning period. I know today we live in an environment of instant gratification. It's this, it's now.
Right.
What was that planning period like for you? Because a lot of people, that's the journey. Everybody sees the outcome. What was that 10 to 11 months like?
Yeah, when I tell the story, I usually talk about it this way. So I literally had a windowless office in my basement with a laptop computer, 2 monitors, and at the time, I think I still had a landline phone, and I would go on websites looking for companies to buy. I spent a lot of time on the phone talking to business brokers and investment bankers, looking for deals that met a certain set of criteria. And so the first thing was really looking for a needle in a haystack. And so I've spent 6-7 months just looking for a needle in a haystack. So it wasn't sexy, it wasn't fun. But it was, again, I was trying to go somewhere. I was very focused on that goal. Had the support of my wife at home, and kids were like, yep, if you're going to do it, do it. And so leaned into that. Was fortunate to find a partner who had been a colleague when I was at Bank of America in Charlotte doing investment banking. He was doing the same and kind of had a similar vision. And so he and I kind of linked up. But it really was a difficult process of finding a needle in a haystack, finding a willing seller, finding the financing, so the equity capital, the debt capital, to put together to make the deal work. Getting reasonably priced legal and accounting help to help us make sure we were making good decisions. So really trying to spend my money very carefully to try to do something difficult. And it was a $20 million transaction that we did, again, back in '09, kind of starting in my windowless office in the basement of my house.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing that I think is extremely interesting about bootstrapped entrepreneurship is that you're starting out with your own capital.
Yeah.
So how did you manage, or how did you feel about the risk that you were taking using your own money that you worked for X number of years and investing into something that you don't know what the outcome is going to be? And how did you feel?
Yeah. Well, I felt like I had to do it. Was kind of, it was, again, going back to my Morehouse days when I was, leading DC Metro Club, and when I was kind of doing things on campus, and I didn't know quite what to call what it was I was doing. I was really, kind of building a little business on campus, kind of doing that. And so it was something I wanted to do. And so what I needed to do is I just had to find a way to achieve essentially that dream for my own sanity. So you kind of get to a point sometimes in life where you have to do the thing that's going to make you feel a sense of reward personally, that has nothing to do with what your buddy's doing. It has nothing to do with what your family says you ought to do, but really just matches what it is you think you should be doing at that point in time. And that's really kind of where I was in my life, was I needed very much to go do that thing. And so put the capital, I had the capital, what's it for? I mean, and so I could put it in the money market and kind of save it for my kids' education, or put it, towards retirement or whatever else. And I did do some of that. But the other thing to do with it was to invest it. If I was going to invest in anybody, it was going to be invest in myself. Invest and ensure that I got a return on that investment, so that I would, turn that, whatever money I put into it, and put a multiple on that money a few years down the road. So if I was going to work hard, I'd work for myself.
That's good. So I kind of want to pivot here a little bit. I know previous title of president of National Black MBA Association. My question is, given the new really administration that we're in, we see a lot of executive orders, to be exact, a lot of different philosophies coming in. What are some of the challenges you've seen from your perspective of working with Black professionals, kind of tied into really what's going on with the new administration? What's that environment like for really Black professionals?
Yeah, I think, frankly, we're not quite sure yet. I think that I've noticed a couple things, though, interestingly enough, is that there seems to be, for particularly younger Black professionals, this question mark of entrepreneurship versus corporate career. And what I have tried to encourage people to do is to think about how they come together. They don't have to be independent of one another. Sort of a corporate career can lead to entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship can lead to a corporate career, and back and forth. So you don't have to be committed necessarily to one path or the other. It really is more a function of where am I going today, and that can certainly be a different place that you may be going tomorrow. And that's just how that kind of works. And then I think relative to the environment that we're in, I think it's certainly a period of uncertainty. We are not sure at all, what this president is going to do to the economy and how that's going to be impacted. But I do think that we have to remember that we live in a capitalist republic, is what our country is, and so we have to think about diversity and inclusion initiatives and that kind of thing, really not from the standpoint of race, but really from the standpoint of economics, from the standpoint of green instead of black and brown. And by the way, the folks that have benefited most from DEI are really white women, and I think we forget that. And so when we really think about this thing, what I think, first of all, America is browning. I think that DEI is about green. It's about making money. Every time you look back at When the first immigrants came to America, it was, sort of beggars and thieves and third-class citizens that were allowed to leave Europe and come to the New World. That was inclusion. You think about, I think it was 1920 when one of the amendment that allowed women the right to vote was passed. When you think about the voting rights in 1965, when you kind of go through American history, if you parallel key moments to what the GDP of the country was at that time, what you see is that inclusion allows the GDP to grow. And so to the extent that we're about making money in this country, and the last time I checked we were, then what we want to do is include as many people as we can. That means you want to hand out, that means you want to hook up, it means you want talented folks, wherever you can find them, to get the opportunity to help us grow. And so I think that's something that I remind people is that don't worry too much about the noise. Do your best, get a good education, get good professional experience, and then go do your thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But there's currently online there's this term going around called wantrepreneur. So in your opinion, what do you think separates a wantrepreneur, which is someone who says they're an entrepreneur, business owner, and an actual entrepreneur? And what skills does an actual entrepreneur have?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think, that, and I had never heard that term, wantrepreneur, but, I think that for me, and I think I went through this phase probably, the difference between somebody, in my mind, that's a wantrepreneur and an entrepreneur is really somebody that does it. And is confident enough in their skills, whatever sort of area that entrepreneurial venture might be in, confident enough to actually go do it, to kind of put it down and go do it, to go in the basement for whatever period of time it is, and come out and do the thing, or to build the website, or to put yourself on the shared work sites, or whatever it is, to kind of do some project work for folks. Whatever that is, go about doing it. Set it up as a thing to do it, as opposed to kind of, I have this idea, I'm kind of talking about it, I'm thinking about it, but I'm not doing it. And then actually go ahead, commit to something. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to do a huge leverage buyout, or I'm going to build I'm going to create a large private equity fund, or whatever it might be. It might be, I'm going to build a babysitting business, and I'm going to do that 4 times a month. If that's your definition of entrepreneurship for you, and it matches what you need in your life, then fine. But do that and be committed to doing the things that allows you to do that.
That's good. And I would say, like, handing out gems left and right, like like the part about the
What happens when you get old?
wisdom. My question to you is: it seems like you've had such a plethora and vast range of experiences through whether that be corporate, entrepreneurship, management. My question to you is: where do you see yourself next? I know you said this is a time of kind of strategic thinking, but for in your eyes, where do you see yourself going next?
I tell you, give me 30 days and ask me again. I really don't know. What I do know is that when you look back through the thread of the things that I've done, historically, it is tied to kind of one idea, and that is business building. So whether I was working in investment banking, doing mergers and acquisitions, or whether I was at the National Black MBA, or whether I was sort of buying a bus company, or whether I was working for the White House, in my mind, it all had to do with business building. How do we put the blocks in place to build a business? And so I'm certain that wherever I go next, whether it is to a different entrepreneurial venture, back to corporate, back to private equity in some way, that'll be a thread in my mind is this business building? And I think another element for me that has been really important is investing in Black folks. I understand that the current civil rights movement is economic civil rights, or as John Hill Bryant would say, civil rights. And so that's what I think is really, those are the two things that are important to me: business building and economic advancement for our people. So I'll be trying to figure out how to put those together.
Absolutely. To Charles's point about strategy, keeping this completely factual, what do you think are the most important next moves for anyone, all ages, under Trump's new presidency? And what do you think should be done either financially, entrepreneurship wise? What are some crucial next moves that need to be taken in place? Just looking ahead for the future.
Yeah. Challenging question, but I really think the answer is the same no matter who the president is. I think, and that answer really is be true to yourself. I think it's really easy to allow the noise in the news to distract you. It's really easy to allow, where it appears the market is moving to maybe send you in a particular direction or another. But at the end of the day, if you're not happy, at the end of the day, if you're not living in your excellence and your expertise, if you're not able to do that thing or those things that really match who you are as a person, as a professional, in your heart, in addition to in your head, then you'll be wasting time. And so, presidents come and go, Congresses come and go, but you'll be here for a long time and doing your thing. So what I would say is get focused on who you are and where you want to go and go do that. And excellence, cream will rise to the top no matter what the administration is doing.
I know you said one of your key things right now is investing back in Black folk. And my question is, through, let's say, I'm assuming you've worked with different ages and career paths of many different individuals. What are some of those key skills that you think are a common denominator amongst all successful people you've interacted with?
Oh, wow. Well, I just kind of said one of them, which is they are passionate about what they're doing, not because it is the flavor of the week, but they're passionate about it because that's who they are. That really is probably number one. Number two is that there is a skill that they have and they know it. They know what it is. And they don't have to be great at everything, but there's something that they're really good at and might believe that they are world class, kind of better than most at. And that's something that kind of pops up as well. I'd also say that they're relentless, so they don't quit. And so, because that's required to get ahead. I mean, a lot of things come up in the world to stop you and try to bring you down, to try to take you off course. But the people that are successful and relentless.
I want to challenge something you said, not to put you on the spot, but you said the common denominator is that they kind of know what their skill is. Yeah. My question is, flip side, kind of playing a devil's advocate here. What about that person who can't really find their skill, or we hear finding your purpose all the time? What do you have to say to the person who maybe doesn't see themselves as better in the field than someone else?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so first of all, so keep going in your education and your career. Keep going. If you're not sure yet, keep going. Just keep going, because the skills that you acquire, the training that you get in school will pay off. The second thing, though, I would say is, because I think I went through this kind of phase for myself. I think I may be experiencing that right now for myself, kind of asking myself the same question again. And I think really, allow yourself the space to think about who you are, where you want to go, what you would be doing if you weren't getting paid, if there was no peer pressure from the outside. So I mentioned, when I was a student at Morehouse, blue suit, red tie, wingtip shoes, everybody's chasing these corporate jobs around, white shirt, red tie. I want to work for this company, I want to work for this company, I want to work for this company. Well, one of the things that ultimately I discovered, kind of made me unhappy was I was chasing that corporate job. But why was I chasing the corporate job? What pays well, it looks good on a resume, but it also was because all my buddies were doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I figured if they're doing that, well, I guess I should be doing the same thing. I'm a business major too. But one day I had the opportunity to sit down with myself in a quiet room, glass of wine, and just kind of ask myself some questions. Who are you? Like, what are you really trying to do? Where are you really trying to go? What really excites you? Forget about all those people, because they're not here. And so if you had to go do it yourself, all by yourself, where would you go? And giving yourself the permission to answer that question for yourself is a big deal. And it's something that not everybody takes the opportunity to do. So that's what I would say to that person. And the other thing is that it's okay to change tomorrow. I tell my sons this all the time, like, keep going, go forward. And guess what? If you hit a fork in the road and decide you need to change, it's okay. When you make a decision today about who you are, where you want to go, what your next career move is going to be, it's not a permanent choice. It might last 6 months. It might last 6 years. It might last a lifetime. But it doesn't have to be a permanent choice. So you can make that choice today, and you can sit down with yourself and have that conversation again tomorrow and make a different choice. And that's perfectly okay. And so I think if you give yourself permission in those areas to do those things, then that person that is unsure will be much happier and will get much further much faster.
It seems like you've had quite a few epiphanic moments in your life, right?
That's a Morehouse word right there, epiphanic.
I just love to hear about one time when you struggled with something. Could be intrinsically, it could be a business situation, whatever. Not only how did you go through it, but what did you realize after you came out of that experience?
Yeah. I think I just kind of talked about it. I was I left. I was laid off at Bank of America in 2000, I guess it was. Kind of the internet bubble burst. Y'all were probably too young to live through that, but the internet bubble burst. Laid off from Bank of America, and had just a little bit of severance, and was kind of sitting around my house. I had a kid and one on the way, and I was like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I supposed to do? What should I be doing? And I didn't readily have the answer. It wasn't like just get up and, go walk into somebody's company tomorrow, or walk around the corner and go into my dad's business and take the desk next door to his and start working. It wasn't like that. I mean, I had to really kind of sit down and figure it out. And so, sort of my initial instinct was, well, print off a resume, put on a suit, go start meeting people, shaking their hands and ask for a job. Well, that didn't work so well. Because there were other people out there who were living into who they exactly were, who their purpose, matching their purpose with who they really were. Yeah. Financiers who were much more passionate about, leverage debt, or, whatever it might be, derivatives, trading, or whatever the thing might be. Folks interviewing with McKinsey and Bain who were much more skilled at management consulting, and sort of the models and sort of the way that they thought about the world was the same way. This is really who they were. And I was kind of showing up, I could do some consulting, I could do some banking. I'm kind of like, no. We want the person who is the pro. We want the person who this is best for, period. Not because the resume looks good, but because it actually fits who they are. And at a certain point in time, that begins to come out. And so I had to go sit down and do that for myself. And sit down and ask myself those questions. Say, okay, who am I? Where am I trying to go? Why am I trying to go there? What makes me different than anybody else? What's the kind of opportunity that fits? What's the kind that does not? So those that do not, don't go over there no more. And the ones that do, like, really focus at those spaces, be willing to have a conversation with somebody and tell them, who you are, what you want to do, where you want to be, where you want to go, because you're really passionate about it, and take the risk that they tell you, no, which doesn't fit for you. Because by taking that risk, that same person might be able to say, but you know what, it fits over here. Yeah. And it might be something that you hadn't thought about, or that I hadn't thought about, and say, well, you know what, you should go look over here, because that sounds a lot like what you just described. Oh, wow, okay, I'll do that. And by and large, and over time, it sort of helped me to get better at owning, kind of more who I am. So that's kind of how I worked through it, was kind of eventually sitting down by myself and kind of, fessing up to myself who I really was and where I really wanted to go.
I'll say, Mr. Hicks, I really appreciate how personable your stories are, because Liam can probably attest to this, and whoever may be watching this video, especially college students. We see so much of people who have already made it, such as yourself, but they never take the time to reflect and go back into basically where they were, where we are now. Yeah. And I really appreciate it, because your stories are very personable. It's like your storytelling is good. It almost feels like I'm just sitting. It's like I'm watching a movie. I'm just really locked in with what's going on. And I would say I really do appreciate all the gems that you dropped. And to kind of conclude here, I know we talked about different skills that students should have to become successful, but I want to ask you, just on a personal level, if you could leave students with one piece of advice from all of the experiences, all the businesses, everything you've done, what would that one piece of advice be?
get up and get started. You know, I mean, I think you all get the gems here at Morehouse all the time. I mean, show up early, you know, ask questions, but it all starts with getting up and showing up. And so if there's some place you're trying to go, you know, you can't cross the room from here. You got to start putting one foot in front of the other. And it sounds really, really basic. It sounds really fundamental, and I could give some, you know, kind of deeper thoughts. But if you know you're trying to go somewhere, start moving in that direction.
That's good. Well, I
think you put it like so, you put it so straightforwardly, so directly. I mean, one of the major issues that, you know, I'm currently working on a project and I've had this idea, but it's not until I took that first step that something actually happened. And it sounds so basic. It's like, okay, if you don't do this, this won't happen. But that fear or even taking that first step is huge.
Yeah.
But I just want to thank you for your time today and for all the nuggets of wisdom that you've dropped and everything. It's been great.
My pleasure. Always good to be with you and to be on campus.
Yes, sir. Well, again, everyone, thank you for watching this video thus far. Please make sure you like and subscribe. If you would like to get in contact with Mr. Hicks, we'll include his LinkedIn in the comments section down below. That is okay. And then, other than that, thank you all, and we look forward to starting a 2020 right. See you on the next one. Peace.